Hello everyone, glad to be back. Today is 8th of September, now it's 11 o'clock in the morning Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update for the day, in which I will share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. There are quite a few very significant developments and news that I like to share with you for this moment, and I will start with a short summary of the situation on the battlefield, if I may. So first, southern sectors and then northern ones. So during the previous night, Russian armed forces did conducted yet another missile and drone strikes on logistical and military infrastructure of Kiev regime, and I did share this information on my Telegram page this morning. So last night, Russian military forces launched missile and drone strikes against the military and logistical infrastructure of the Zelensky's regime in the regions of Sumy, Kharkiv, Zaporozhye, Kherson, and Odessa, according to a number of sources. And main direction, yet again, as I understand, was Odessa region. To be more precise, these port cities on Danube River, Reni, Izmail, and Kilia. Drones were striking Izmail during the previous night, if I'm not mistaken, although it's quite possible that Reni and Kilia portal and logistical infrastructure was targeted in Reni and Kilia. Also, during the day, of course, Russian Defense Ministry will share with public additional information, and I will write about it on my Telegram. And by the way, what is most important when it comes to these drone strikes in this direction is that Russian side is trying not just to destroy portal infrastructure of these cities on Danube River, so that this route would not be, Danube River itself would not be used by Zelensky and his associates as one of the ways to receive military equipment, but also reason to strike in this direction is that, according to some reports, Ukrainian side is building maritime drones in these areas, and then are using Danube River to launch those maritime drones. So I guess that's why Russian side is so persistent to destroy military and logistical infrastructure of Zelensky and his associates Kiev regime in this region, in this area of Odessa region. And I guess strikes will continue for very same reason. Now let's talk about Kherson sector of the front line. It's usual stuff, artillery duels between the sides, recon operation, and constant fight for control over these small islands on the Dnieper River and delta of this river. Even though in previous days and even weeks we did had some reports that Ukrainian side was accumulating forces in west bank of Dnieper River to conduct crossing operations in several directions, at least for previous 24 hours and last several days even. We did not see any such attempt from Ukrainian side, so it's operational pause or deadlock. Nothing is happening that will influence overall situation on this sector of the front. Next, Zaporozhye and South Donetsk sectors of the front, main axis of Ukrainian so-called counteroffensive, which is in its fourth month now. And the main hotspot when it comes to Zaporozhye sector, of course, is this Orekhov bridgehead that Ukrainian side did manage to establish, mainly settlements of Rabotina, Verbova, and Novoprokopovka. And according to latest news, early hours of this morning, somewhere about 5 o'clock, Ukrainian side did try to conduct offensive operation in Rabotina area with several tanks and armored personnel carriers. But when the Russian side destroyed armored personnel carriers and the tank of Ukrainian forces, infantry was forced to retreat on initial position, and since then there was no attempt to conduct any offensive in this area. Mainly Ukrainian side is trying to concentrate their forces in between Rabotina and Verbova to dig in, because they probably do understand very well that they are in pocket, basically in fire pocket. So only chance they have is to dig in the ground, by the way, literally in the ground, into ground, because Russian long-range artillery can strike any point on this bridgehead anytime. And of course, Russian aviation also. At this point, question is rising, what Ukrainian forces even are trying to achieve in this area, because they are sending more and more reinforcements in this bridgehead, probably to accumulate the forces and then conduct yet another push in the direction of Tokmak in hope to reach this settlement, very important logistical hub of Russian side. But they have no chance, by the way. They just have no chance, and at least officers of Ukrainian armed forces should understand this. But anyway, for this moment, there is no significant activity on this sector of the front line. I will call situation a deadlock or operational pause. Once Ukrainian side will accumulate all its Rust reserves in this Orekhov bridgehead, then probably we will see some activization of Ukrainian side. But this has to happen in next several days, maximum several weeks. Otherwise, raining season will be gone, and well, Rasputitsa will make fields in this area and country roads just unpenetratable for military equipment. It will be a river of mud, as I said many times before, and not just said, but I did show many times videos on my Telegram page what Rasputitsa does to country roads. It's literally a river of mud, and even tanks are finding it's extremely difficult to move through that mud. So it's operational pause right now. Nothing is happening that will influence overall situation on this sector of the front line. Ukrainian side, for whatever reason, is basically sending more and more troops to this fire pocket in Orekhov bridgehead. And when it comes to South Donetsk sector of the front line, it's also quite a calm in comparison to previous days and weeks, even though several days ago we had reports that Ukrainian side finished its regrouping in this sector of the front line, and they were ready to conduct some local scale offensive operations. We only see some reckoning force operation a few days ago in direction of these settlements, Novodonetskaya and Novomayorskaya, but as I predicted straight away, we would see many videos of destruction of Ukrainian armed groups while this operation was in force, and that's what exactly did happen. During the day we did see, and I did share on my Telegram, many videos of destruction of Ukrainian armed groups that were trying to conduct offensive in direction of these two settlements. Offensive, that was probably a reckoning force operation with use of quite significant number of armed groups, and basically majority of military equipment and manpower that was participating in that offensive was neutralized by Russian artillery, drones, and frontline aviation. Since then, it's quiet in this sector of the front line, and one may wonder, is it because Ukrainian side is lacks manpower and military equipment, or because Russian side quite successfully destroying basically logistical lines of Ukrainian armed forces on Donetsk sector of the front line, which is used, by the way, also by Ukrainian forces in South Donetsk sector. Or maybe both scenarios are true. Who knows? But anyway, on South Donetsk direction right now it's a relatively calm situation, operational pause, deadlock, nothing is happening that will influence situation on this sector of the front in any significant scale. When it comes to Donetsk direction, as I just mentioned, it's mainly artillery duels and attempts from Russian side, constant attempts to distract logistical lines of Ukrainian forces that are Ukrainian side that are used by Ukrainian forces, not just on Donetsk direction, but also on South Donetsk direction. And I guess Russian artillerymen and Russian operators of drones are quite successful to distract these logistical lines. But when it comes to ground operations, even though Russian forces are quite active in usual hotspots, it's Marinka, Here, by the way, Krasnogorovka and Avdiivka directions, nothing is happening at least now that will influence overall situation on this sector of the front. No one side is probably even planning to achieve any breakthrough in coming days, or maybe even in foreseeable future. It's a relatively calm situation, even though Ukrainian side, because of these heavy artillery duels, Ukrainian side usually loses 200 to 300 military personnel on Donetsk direction on daily basis. And when it comes to northern flank of Donetsk sector, Bakhmut and surrounding areas, here Ukrainian side is trying to conduct yet again some local scale offensive operations in direction on the southern flank of Bakhmut in direction of Andreevka. Ukrainian forces probably will become little more active in direction of Klishchevka also, but my reading of picture is that Ukrainian grouping of forces in Bakhmut direction have already run out of steam, and I don't think Ukrainian units will be able to achieve any breakthrough whatsoever. They may just successfully demilitarize themselves, like several brigades, Ukrainian brigades already did in this sector of the front, and that's it really. When it comes to northern flank of Bakhmut, initiative is totally in on Russian side, and the Ukrainian forces, I guess, don't even try no more to achieve any more or less significant success in this direction of Krasnaya Gora, Solidar, let's say. And northern sectors of the front line, it's the usual stuff, artillery duels between the sides, constant attempt from Ukrainian forces to at least regain initiative on some areas of the northern sectors. But Russian forces are very well prepared in these areas, and Ukrainian offensives are repelled time after time. And as I said many times before, only question when it comes to northern sectors is that when Moscow will greenlight large-scale offensive operations from Seversk, even from Bakhmut, by the way, even from central sectors of the front, from Bakhmut and Seversk up to Kupiansk and the entire Kharkov region. When Russian side, Kharkov region, by the way, also Sumy region, we can say, also Chernigov region. And the question is, will Russian side will be activate its forces during this autumn, in next several weeks before rainy season begins, or it will happen in the winter? That's the only question, because Ukrainian side has no chance to achieve any breakthroughs, not just on the northern sectors of the front line, but on any sectors of the front line, by the way. It's just too obvious. So this is it for short summary of the situation on the front line. And by the way, before I share with you some additional news, let me once again highlight that this project with several channels on YouTube, Rumble, Telegram exists solely due to support of members of our community, and I will be immensely grateful if you will also consider to support this project and my work with small donations through PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, or by subscribing to my Patreon page, in which I do upload some extra content on regular basis. You will see links under this video in the description box or in the pinned comment. Now let's talk about some other news. And well, TASS news agency is reporting about day of elections in Russia, and this topic gonna be a major topic for Russian society and Russian media during the day, because today more than 4,000 different levels of elections will be conducted in Russia. Among them, in 21 regions, high-ranking officials will be elected. In 20 regions, local lawmakers will be elected, and as I said, overall in entire country 4,000 different level of elections will be conducted. And by the way, of course, new regions of Russian Federation are also participating in these elections, including Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics, Kharkov region, and Zaporozhye region. At least for this moment, we don't have any information that elections anywhere was in trouble, or no information that there was any trouble anywhere during this election. Everything is going smoothly, which is important, by the way, especially when we are talking about new regions of Russian Federation where Kiev regime may try to conduct some criminal or terrorist activity, as they do quite often. Let's continue now, and this is RIA Novosti's report, which is based on statement of governor of Zaporozhye region, yes, Evgeny Baletsky, who said that Russian forces did not allow Ukrainian side to conduct rotation, and as a result of strikes on Ukrainian forces in Rabotina and Verbovo areas, Ukrainian side lost up to 100 military personnel. And by the way, this information once again confirms what I just said a few minutes ago when it comes to this Orekhov bridgehead or fire pocket, because if you take a look at the map, it's becoming obvious that for whatever reason, Ukrainian or Kiev regime is sending its military personnel in this fire pocket on daily basis, when it's obvious that Russian long-range artillery or Russian frontline aviation can strike any one position at any time in entire this area, in entire this bridgehead. And that's exactly what have been confirmed by statements of Baletsky during the rotation of several units. Russian side conducted strikes, and Ukrainian side lost 100 military personnel in just a few seconds. And that kind of strikes may take place, as I said, constantly, anytime, at any point on that bridgehead. And by the way, we have some answers why this is happening. For example, and we have two news I want to share with you, two information, and then I will comment on it. So RT has RT published article of Sergei Politaev, who is co-founder and editor of the What For project think tank, I guess. And well, according to him, Western so-called elites know very well that the Ukrainian counteroffensive is failing, so he's asking question, what is the plan B? And according to him, failure of the proxy war is now motivating Western figures to consider negotiating ceasefire in Ukraine with Russia. And well, according to Sergei Politaev, negotiations may take place, or ceasefire may be established based on current positions that sides hold. So there will be no withdrawal of any one side from any one position. So this is basically somewhat a Korean scenario, which have been discussed in media and have been proposed even by high-ranking officials from many countries, by the way, in previous weeks and months. But in my opinion, when it comes to this Korean scenario, I don't see any even single reason why Moscow would agree on such a scenario. I just don't see it, because it's obvious that Russian forces are winning this battle. It's obvious that ceasefire would not hold for a long time, because, of course, this time ceasefire will be used by Western so-called elites to reinforce Kiev regime, rearm Kiev regime, and then provoke conflict again. So there is no single reason why Moscow would agree on such scenario. And in my understanding, personally, and which I did share with you many times before, in my understanding, Ukrainian side is continuing this counteroffensive, and the Western so-called elites, especially Washington and London, demanding from Kiev to continue this counteroffensive, even though, of course, US generals and UK generals know very well, perfectly well, that Ukrainian side has no chance to achieve anything in this counteroffensive. They are demanding still continuation of this offensive because, in my understanding, in my reading of big picture, one of the main tasks right now for Washington and London and Warsaw, by the way, I will say, is to make sure that Russian forces will neutralize vast majority of more or less battle-ready Ukrainian forces, so that when Poland and some other NATO member states will try to establish control over the western regions of Ukraine, they will receive as minimal resistance as possible, because it's obvious that under whatever source or pretext Poland and these other NATO member states gonna enter western Ukraine, whatever they're gonna call it, eventually they will end up fighting with the Ukrainian neo-Nazi units and units of Ukrainian armed forces that will fight with together with under command of these neo-Nazis, let's say this way. So it's obvious that to make sure that there will be minimal resistance when NATO, let's say, will try to establish, or NATO member states will try to establish control over the western regions, they need this counteroffensive to be continued. They need Ukrainian army to be destroyed and collapsed basically by Russian forces. And that's the only reason, in my understanding, at this point, why, maybe not the only reason, but one of the major reasons why this offensive is continuing, and why Washington and London not allowing Zelensky to even say word peace. You know, Zelensky is not even allowed to talk about possible negotiations with Russia. That's the reasons, by the way. And of course, secondary reason can be, that's a major reason, and secondary reason can be that, of course, Western so-called elites are extremely Russophobes, and they want to damage Russia as much as possible. So that's a secondary reason. But main reason, undoubtedly, in my understanding, is to make sure that Russian side will take care of vast majority of Ukrainian armed forces, and Poland, Romania, Hungary and Slovakia, when they will try, and some other NATO member states also, by the way, which will participate in this operation to establish control of the western Ukraine, so that their forces will receive minimal resistance. It's so obvious to me, by the way. But anyway, let's continue. That's why I have to disagree with Sergei Povletaev. I don't think right now Western real rulers of the Western world, let's say, will allow any peace talks to take place. Peace talks will begin only when Ukraine will be divided between the sides. That will be topic of negotiations, where this contact line will be between Russian forces and the NATO member state forces. That's it. Because after this conflict, 99%, I will give 99% that after this conflict, Ukraine as a state will not exist on political map. And I will leave just a slight chance, 1%, that for somehow Kiev and surrounding areas will remain as a landlocked quasi-state on the name of Ukraine. But by the way, I will leave for this just slight chance, 1%, less than that. Because me personally quite sure that Ukraine will be fully divided between the sides, and Russia will control entire Ukraine, with exception of western regions of this failed state. But anyway, let's continue. And this, by the way, this reading of a picture perfectly well explains why London and Washington are still pushing and demanding from Kiev this counteroffensive to be continued, because basically they are achieving what they want. They are neutralizing Ukrainian forces, battle-ready Ukrainian forces. And they are neutralizing manpower of Ukraine who may be used by neo-Nazis in Ukraine to resist in Western Ukraine. So that's my reading of picture. There will be no Korean scenario played out on Ukraine. No, man. And by the way, also kind of continuation of this topic, TASS news agency is reporting about statements that Voice of Reason from US military expert Scott Ritter did made during one of the shows that he was participating in. And well, Scott Ritter said that Ukrainian side cannot stop this suicidal so-called counteroffensive because Kiev regime is afraid, Zelensky and his associates are afraid of US. And when it comes to interests of US, according to Scott Ritter, it's, US don't care about casualties on part of Ukrainian side, but what US ruling class wants is to deal maximum damage to Russian side. And that's why they are pushing Zelensky to continue this counteroffensive. This is a reading of Scott Ritter, and I have to disagree with him also partially, because of course Zelensky and his associates are afraid of Washington and London also, and they are forced to continue this counteroffensive. But main reason is that, as I just said, Washington and London, they want, and Warsaw, by the way, they want to minimize possible resistance from Ukrainian side when they will try to establish control over the western regions of this failed state. And to do so, they have to make sure that Russian side will take care of vast majority of more or less battle-ready Ukrainian units. They need to make sure that Russia will demilitarize and destroy basically Ukrainian army, and exactly this is happening right now. And since the beginning of basically special military operation. But anyway, by the way, time will tell. Time will tell. My reading of big picture may be mistaken, I don't know. But, time will tell. Let me continue. I'm quite sure that I see big picture quite correctly. But yet again, let's see. TASS news agency is reporting, by the way, that well, according to statements from Pentagon, from deputy of press spokesman of Pentagon, Sabrina Singh, according to her, I guess pronunciation of Sabrina is her, although who knows, man. Nowadays some strange stuff is happening in some countries of the Western world, and Sabrina may have some ideas that she is not she no more, and she is he or they or wardrobe, for God's sake, man, or I don't know, harvesting machine. So I don't know what her pronunciation is, but anyway, this person did said that shells with depleted uranium will arrive in Ukraine from US, while for a time when Ukrainian Abrams tanks will reach their final destination, Abrams tanks that was promised to Zelensky and his associates. So basically, because Abrams should arrive in Ukraine in the next week, let's say, in next several days, I guess depleted uranium shells already are in Ukraine. And this is quite unfortunate, by the way. Once again, demonstration that not US ruling class, not UK's ruling class cares about ordinary Ukrainians, because everyone knows that these shells with depleted uranium are extremely poisonous, extremely toxic. And by the way, I did watch a small fragment on CNN yesterday when some representative of Pentagon was talking about these deliveries of Pentagon, if I'm not mistaken, was talking about deliveries of these shells, and the accent was made on how not really radioactive these shells are. When point is not in radioactivity of the shells. The problem is that these shells are extremely toxic because of constant because this still uranium, by the way, depleted, but still it's radioactive, and this small radioactivity is enough to contaminate with toxic substances, water, ground, just everything in area where these shells are used. Problem is not, no one is saying that these shells are extremely radioactive. You can hold this shell and nothing will happen. Problem is that these shells are extremely toxic. But Western media is trying to say nothing about it. And that was quite a example of that, what I see on CNN, when they say no single word about toxicity of those shells. They are trying to say, you know what, it's not radioactive, and that therefore nothing special. But anyway, let's continue. But in reality, by the way, this is pure demonstration that leadership of US and the UK don't really care about lives of Ukrainians, because these shells gonna poison Ukrainians, by the way, for generations. And TASS news agencies reporting that they will be happy, this White House representative this Jake Sullivan, his assistance of Biden in national security. Let me translate his position. So, according to assistant to U.S. President for national security, Jake Sullivan, yes, one more girl and criminal and mass murderer. So, according to Jake Sullivan, they would be happy in Washington if Zelensky will participate in G20 summit, which will take place tomorrow, by the way, tomorrow and the day after. Jake Sullivan and his boss can drink cold water, it may help to calm down, but Zelensky is not invited because he is nobody. And nobodies are not invited on G20 summit. That was decision of host country. That was decision of New Delhi. Although, of course, Indian officials never called Zelensky nobody. I will. And let's continue now. TASS news agency is reporting that, according to CNN, by the way, yet again CNN, Elon Musk refused to activate Starlink internet system over the Crimea and in surrounding areas because he was afraid that Ukrainian side will use Starlink system to strike on Russian Black Sea fleet, and this way Starlink will end up being involved in significant escalation of conflict in Ukraine. At one hand, right decision. And of course, by the way, CNN was complaining about it. They are not happy that Musk acted this way. But when it comes to Musk himself, at one hand, this decision is correct, of course. But in other hand, and by the way, this decision was forced. It's not because Musk is like pro-Russian or that cares about Ukrainians or Russians. No, I don't think so. It's because Russian side will just disable entire his this Starlink system. He was afraid that Russian side will just destroy entire his multi-billion project, this Starlink. And if it was up to me, by the way, I will destroy it anyway, because the Ukrainian side do use Starlink dishes on the front lines, on the ground. So that's good enough reason for me personally, Starlink to be destroyed. And if it was up to me, that's what I will do. But Putin is, well, he is too soft, by the way. He is just too soft. Unfortunately, I will say. And by the way, I mean, I'm not warmonger, or I don't want to seem like a warmonger, but I mean, if I'm in fight, I'm in fight, man, and I will go all the way. And if I have to die, then I will die. That's my approach. It's always better to avoid fight, but if it's unavoidable, then just do whatever you have to do. That's my approach in this life, and because this conflict has begun, then if it was up to me, I will do absolutely everything to destroy enemies with all means necessary. With all means necessary. That's how I will act. But anyway, let's continue. So information is quite interesting, but yet again, I guess Musk was forced to turn off Starlink in Crimea region. Otherwise, Moscow will probably destroy his entire this project. But anyway, let's continue. TASS news agency is reporting that, according to military experts, Leopard 1 tanks that will be delivered, supposed to be delivered by Germany to Zelensky and his associates, are not really up to task because of not that accurate gun, not that good armor, and so on. After all, by the way, Leopard 1 is a tank of 50s and 60s of previous century, like Russian or Soviet T-55 or T-62. So you're not gonna expect too much from that old MBT. Although to fire from long distances, they can be used. I mean, these tanks can be used as a mobile artillery system. But to engage in direct combat, let's say with the modern tanks, T-72s or T-90s, well, the Leopards, of course, will have no chance. And by the way, because of weak armor, Leopards are quite in danger even from artillery shells. Fragments of artillery shells can penetrate from side to side these tanks, because armor is quite weak on Leopards, even on Leopard 2s, by the way. But anyway, no matter what kind of weapons Western so-called elites will deliver to Zelensky and his associates, Leopard 1s, Leopard 2s, Challengers, Abrams, Korean K2 tanks, or we all know that eventually Russia will emerge victorious from this conflict anyway. And this is undisputed, by the way. And let me continue. TASS news agency is reporting. How long is this video? 39 minutes. Okay, I will go just through headlines. So, according to TASS news agency, Annalena Baerbock, foreign minister of Germany, did make statements about Taurus long-range cruise missiles, and she said that it's not that easy to deliver these weapons to Zelensky and his associates. She didn't specify what she meant by this, but she did said that if Iris-T air defense systems was easy to deliver, if Leopard 2 tanks was or Leopard tanks were easy to deliver, because specifics of those equipments. IRIS-T is a different beast, which is true, by the way. It's a long-range missile, and Berlin maybe someone in current leadership of Germany do have brains, man. Maybe someone has working brains in current government of Germany, and this someone is trying to explain to these idiots that it will be a huge mistake if they will deliver Taurus missiles to Ukraine. But I guess eventually Berlin will do what Washington and London will demand, which is delivery of those weapons, and maximum what German engineers can do in this case, they can reprogram missile, and they may try to introduce some self-destructive mode into a program, so that if missile will cross Russian border, it will detonate. Theoretically, that's a possibility, but if German engineers can reprogram this missile, I guess Ukrainian software engineers can do the same thing and use these missiles to strike deep inside Russian territory. So let's see what Germany will decide when it comes to these weapon systems, but I guess if Washington and London wants these missiles to be in hands of Zelensky, these missiles will be in hands of Zelensky. I don't see any chance that current German leadership with these strange individuals, extremely poorly educated individuals like Annalena Baerbock, Scholz, and so on. I don't think they are capable of saying no to Washington's demands or London's demands. But anyway, let's continue. This is quite interesting news, by the way, at some sense. So RT is reporting that Germany excludes France from a new tank project. This is reported by media, and well, according to this article, German companies basically, and the Rheinmetall first of all, are beginning to work on next generation tank to replace Leopard 2, and this tank will be supposed to be engineered by Germany itself, Italy, Spain, and Sweden, and France was excluded from this project, which is quite understandable, really, because France is very keen to produce its own weapons, and France has its own production lines of fighter jets, missiles, ships, and main battle tanks also. And French Leclerc main battle tank is probably one of the best tanks, or supposed to be one of the best tanks in the world. At least it's most expensive one, if I'm not mistaken. And I guess French will continue to develop its own next generation tank alone. That's a French approach, by the way, and I cannot say it's a wrong approach, because in this way France depends on its own capacities when it comes to defense, when other countries heavily are dependent on main arms producer of the Western world, which is US. So let's see what kind of new tank Germany, Sweden, Italy, and who else? Spain gonna produce. It will be a decent main battle tank, no doubts about it. But well, time will tell. RIA Novosti is reporting, by the way, that US Air Force will start using airport of Rovaniemi in Finland, which is quite expectable, After Finland joined NATO, of course, US will extend its military bases in Finland, also in the northern latitudes, and of this hemisphere, and of course, because Finland is bordering Russia, I guess Pentagon is very keen to have its military presence on the northern Russian borders also. At the very same time, by the way, we have statements from Finnish president. At one hand, this individual is allowing US to have its military presence in Finland, which does makes Finland the potential target for Russian nuclear weapons. And at the very same time, this individual, Sauli Niinistö or Niinistö, said that it's very high, risk is very high that escalation of conflict in Ukraine may provoke some nuclear war. So for God's sake, if you are worrying about nuclear war and nuclear weapons in general, why you are allowing US militaries into your country when you know that as a response Russia will direct to your country at least several nuclear warheads? These people really that stupid, man. I mean, I find it difficult to see logic behind the thinking of those so-called elites of the West. Something is truly wrong with this individuals, man. In one hand, President of Finland is allowing, and Finnish government basically is allowing their country to become a potential target for Russian nuclear weapons by inviting US military forces. And in other hand, they are stating that, I mean, they are afraid that escalation in Ukraine may eventually provoke nuclear war. Unbelievable, man. If you are so worried about nuclear war, then first of all, think about your own country. But, you know. Anyway, let's continue. And, well, this is quite interesting, by the way. EU globalists waging war on Hungary. That was said by Parliament, Speaker of the Hungarian Parliament, Laszlo Kover. And he said that European Union is launching hybrid war against his country, which is, I guess, true. Hungary is under heavy pressure, by the way, because of its sovereignty and its attempts to stay sovereign state and sovereign nation. And I guess not just Brussels Brussels bureaucrats are trying to somehow dominate over Hungary, but also Washington. Also Washington and the London, major players in Western worlds. And at least for now, Hungary is withstanding this pressure somewhat effectively. And, well, they deserve all the respect. I mean, truly. They do great, by the way. I did not expect they to continue this fight for sovereignty for so long, by the way. But they do. And several more news agencies reporting that, well, Pentagon was unable to conduct test flight of its hypersonic missile for some technical reasons. Well, of course, media outlets all around the world, including in Russia, did pay attention to this information, to this slight failure on part of Pentagon when it comes to development of hypersonic weapons. But by the way, eventually we all know that yes, now US is behind Russia and China when it comes to this hypersonic weaponry, but it's only a matter of time, I don't know, a year, 2, 3, and they will start producing these hypersonic weapons. So me personally, what worries me is that countries are producing now weapons that cannot be neutralized by air defense systems, at least for this moment. And when these countries have such weapons in their hands, it may influence their thinking. They may think, you know what, I can strike without consequences because they cannot intercept my weapons, and that will be great mistake, by the way. That will be a great mistake. That's why this increase in this developments of hypersonic weapons and investments of new types of nuclear weapons are extremely dangerous in my understanding. But who's gonna listen to me, man? That's why Scott Ritter, by the way, voice of reason from US, is so keen to push this narrative of denuclearization, because he do understands very well that eventually humanity is risking, and humanity may end up in nuclear catastrophe, nuclear disaster, if our civilization will not say no to these extremely devastating weapons. But unfortunately, these so-called world elites are not listening to Scott Ritter either. To nobody, really. And by the way, let me continue. This update gonna be too long. It's already 51 minutes. Just one more topic and that's it. Or just headlines. So, by the way, TASS news agency is reporting that Armenian security forces or police detained one blogger, pro-Russian blogger in Armenia, and journalist of Sputnik Armenia. Sputnik is a Russian media, of course, and the Russian media outlet. And well, this happened yesterday, and these people were arrested for 72 hours at least. And just a few minutes ago, updated, I did see update on one of their, on RIA Novosti. Updates are coming up in real time when you have open RIA Novosti's page, and I did read that according to Armenian security services, they find some weapons that supposed to belong to one of their arrested journalists. Well, Moscow don't really believes in this stuff. This step, once again, is a step towards escalation with Russia from current leadership of Armenia. And by the way, I did share on my Telegram statements of Russian official representative of Russian Foreign Ministry when it comes to current developments, current relationships between Armenia and Russia. And well, let me read some of the statements from Maria Zakharova. In the information field of Armenia, there is a prevailing tendency to disseminate one-sided and or to disseminate one-sided and negative information about Russia. So basically, Armenian media is pushing this anti-Russian narrative. So Moscow considers the attempts to kindle anonymity between the Russian Federation and Armenia by blaming Russia for all the troubles of the Armenian people unacceptable. This provocation with the detention of the Sputnik Armenia columnist Gavarkian and blogger Badalyan is aimed at worsening the relationships between the Russian Federation and Armenia. There is a growing number of pro-Western media structures in Armenia which an agenda to discredit the Russian Federation. And Russian Federation and CSTO and EAEU, part of which Armenia is also, and Armenia's refusal to let into the country Russian individuals who have not violated the law causes significant damage to the interaction with the Russian Federation. Well, by the way, quite strong statements from Russian Foreign Ministry, and I did report it yesterday and several times before that Russian and Armenian relationships are experiencing very rough times, mainly because current Prime Minister of Armenia, Pashinyan, is an asset of Western secret services. He's he's a product of Soros, by the way, Soros funds. So what you're gonna expect from that kind of individual? And the president of Armenia, by the way, is also connected with the Western so-called elites and the entire government, basically. And they are pushing this anti-Russian narrative for many, many years, by the way, step by step. And what is extremely unfortunate here, this so-called Armenian ruling class, which is totally controlled by West, especially US, well, they are basically pushing Armenia towards total disaster, historical disaster, by the way. And well, I don't know how long Armenian society will cope with this nonsense, but well, at some point they have to act, because they truly are risking to lose everything, just everything. And well, I don't know, man. I hope something will change, and peace and adequacy will prevail, especially nowadays, because we have reports that Armenia and Azerbaijan are concentrating their forces. Azerbaijan concentrating forces on border with Armenia, and also with Nagorno-Karabakh, which is partially controlled by local Armenian government. And Armenia is deploying its forces on the border with Azerbaijan. So situation is very serious, very dramatic. And when at this point leadership of Armenia is acting so hawkishly towards Russia, that's, I don't know, man, something else, man. They are, I mean, I'm afraid Western so-called elites will provoke conflict, by the way. I'm afraid they will provoke conflict once again between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and unfortunately there is high risk that in this conflict will become involved one way or another Georgia, Russia, Iran, and Turkey, by the way. So some regional conflict may erupt in South Caucasus, which will destroy all countries there, all of them. So let's hope well, peace and adequacy will prevail. And by the way, now the next news is about situation that I just spoke. TASS news agency is reporting that this one, by the way, Pashinyan is Prime Minister of Pashinyan is made statements that Azerbaijan is concentrating its forces on the border with Nagorno-Karabakh and Armenia, which I just said, and which is true, by the way. I did share video footage of that on my Telegram. So very, very strange developments and dangerous developments are taking place. And well, let's hope it will not escalate up to military conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan, which may on its part provoke conflict or force which may engulf in fire some regional countries also. And by the way, a few more topics. RT is reporting that well, according to Dmitry Peskov, press spokesman of the President of Russian Federation, Russian economy is outperforming expectations, which is true, by the way. I don't need to go through details here, which is just true. No one, I guess no one even among extremely optimist people did expect that Russian economy will withstand Western pressure. Just no one. But it did. It did, and Russian economy will grow this year, by the way, in a faster pace than major European economies. Is that the achievement? Of course it is. And by the way, also RT is reporting that Russian oil shipments soar, and this was reported not just by Russian media, or not just only by Russian media, but also by Bloomberg. And according to this information, Russian crude shipments soared by an average of 880,000 barrels per day in the week to August 27, amounting to 3.4 million barrels per day. Tanker tracking data compiled by Bloomberg shows. So yes, Russia is a major player in energy sector, and still major player, and will be major player despite all the Western sanctions and so on. And this is also quite interesting. TASS news agency is reporting that British American Tobacco made decision to leave Russia. Well, that's their decision, and we did oops, excuse me. And by the way, I want to see brands of cigarettes that will leave Russia. So yes, this company will leave Russia, and therefore such brands like Dunhill, Lucky Strike and Rothmans will also leave Russian shelves, I guess, although alternative import routes probably will start working in this market, and this type of cigarettes will still be sell in Russia, but well, anyway, if British American Tobacco wants to lose some several $billion a year, then okay, who cares, man. And this is it. This is it for now. I hope you will find this video interesting. Too long, by the way, more than an hour. But hopefully you will find news update interesting. And if so, please click that like button. Leave some commentary about any topic you like, just about anything. And if you can, please share links to my videos or my channel with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, Telegram, or any other platform that you are active on. This way I will have a better chance to reach a wider audience. And if you think this channel is interesting, useful, has some perspective and potential, and deserves to exist in this field of news and political commentary, please consider to support with small donations through PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, or by subscribing to my Patreon page. This is it for now. I get tired. 1 hour long video and non-stop. Wow. But anyway, this is it for now. I wish you a great day, by the way, and great upcoming weekend. Tomorrow is Saturday, so my day off. And well, I have to work anyway. Tomorrow is in Moscow. It's a celebration of a day of capital, day of Moscow, and I will go to Moscow and make some video footage for maybe for second channel also from Russia with Levant, but mainly for Patreon. So it's gonna be working day, I guess, to me. But anyway, I have to end this video now. Have a great day, great upcoming weekend, and take care.